Alrighty, yo, everybody, welcome to another episode of Elijah Speak Show podcast. And we are live again from San Antonio, and I've got an exciting guest. I've got my brother, Bobby, who is the pastor and the leader of Ascension Church, is a husband, is a father, is an entrepreneur,
Come
is a
on.
visionary. Hey, brother Bob, how you doing, bro?
Well, what's going on, everybody? First of all, Elijah, thank you so much for having me, man. It's such an honor to be here, just be able to talk with you, have an awesome conversation. We've been good. San Antonio treats us right, treats us great, and I love people, and I can't say enough. I mean, you and I have been friends for a while, and it's been awesome to watch both our lives kind of change, right? Like I've seen you. I remember you were living in an apartment, man. I remember those days for you,
Yes.
and that's changed dramatically for you and Erica. It's been so cool to just watch our lives kind of grow together and see what God has done. But thank you for having me. I'm excited.
I'm so happy to have you. Like you said, we've known each other for a while, and we have seen each other grow, go through adversity, walk through this journey, and here we are. So I'm so excited. You're one of my few close friends who know me on the personal level. And I know that you've got an amazing journey, an amazing story that is going to inspire my audience from all over the world. We've got Zambia, South Africa, Botswana, Australia tuning in right now.
Wow.
So, my first question for you, I already know you, just for my audience, who is Bobby?
Who is Bobby? Hey, well, I've obviously got a mother and a father, right? I grew up on the southwest side of San Antonio. Now, for those of you that don't know what the southwest side of San Antonio looks like, for me, it's not, the economic status is not that high in that area. Even the houses that were built where I grew up, you had rival gangs in that area. It may not be like as crazy as somebody else's life, but that's where I grew up, in that area. I was born and raised, lived there my entire life. Then as far as mother and father are concerned, like mom and dad's side, mom's from Mexico City.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I'm first generation on my mom's side here in the United States.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
my mom crossed over to to San Antonio by herself. She didn't have any family in the States.
Wow.
Mom, all my aunts and uncles are still in Mexico City.
Wow.
But for myself, I've got a beautiful wife named Ruby. She's
Yeah.
awesome. We've
Yeah.
known each other since we were in elementary school, Elijah. Elementary
Oh,
school.
I
So
didn't know
elementary,
that.
middle school, high school, rekindled a relationship in college. I have two kiddos, baby boy, he's 2, baby girl, she's 4. And then I have 4 children that I would say that I'm fathering, believing that, if they go back home, awesome. I'd love for them to stay. We foster them. It's been about a year now. So
Wow.
we have a total of 6 kids
Wow.
inside our house, and
Wow.
we pastor a church, and the church has been going now for I've been pastoring that church for Ascension City Church for 6 years now. 6
Yes. Yes.
years. So that's
Yeah.
kind of, and if I'm giving anything else, we have an LLC called RFJ Investments
Okay.
on the side. So like you
Okay.
were saying, entrepreneur, and we flip houses on the side
Oh,
is
that's
what we do.
good. That's
So
good.
that's a little bit about who Bobby is, what
Wow.
I do and what I get the pleasure of doing.
Wow. So, let's take it a little bit back. Of course, you grew up in San Antonio. How was it like growing up? What were some of the memorable experiences that were really okay? Sam, David from Georgia is saying that's a great job you're doing, first being a foster parent at giving back. That's good.
David, that
Because
wasn't easy, David. It was not easy.
it,
It was a cool story, Elijah. The kids actually came into our lives in less than 24 hours.
wow.
I, in one day, Elijah, it was 3 p.m. I just got out of the gym, got a phone call from a caseworker, lets me know, hey, I have 4 foster homes for these
Wow.
kids already.
Wow.
Every single one of them would have been separated. They would have gone out of the city, and one would have gone into a group home. And they said, if you don't take the kids, they're all going into the foster system.
Wow.
So I can be at your house at 8 p.m. So it's 3 p.m. I'd be at your house at 8 p.m., finish all the paperwork. You'll have the kids by 9 a.m. the next morning.
Wow.
So that's what happened. They stepped in the living room, and yeah, I at the moment it was overwhelming, because we're church planners, we're still church planning, and to have a moment where you're going to be in charge of 4 lives, it really gave us the opportunity to live out what we believe in and trust God and what he's doing. And I believe that he cares for orphans and widows. And now we're just living it in every way. We're really remembering the one, like literally in our lifestyle, not just in the title of pastor, but in our personal lives, having that opportunity to do that for somebody.
That's so deep. That's so deep. I like that. Hey, Kalawais from Zambia, thanks for tuning in. And Gordon, the topic is just having a conversation about life in general. So, Bobby, take me back a little bit about growing up. What are some of the things that you experienced as a child that were a little bit scary or challenging?
Oh, that's a good one. So, like I was telling you, mom was from Mexico, so grew up in a Hispanic household, and there's a certain culture to Hispanic households. You can have some very domineering attributes that come along with that. Sometimes there are some very core values, it's almost like religious, really, that we all have to live up to in a certain way. Like if you don't know Spanish and you're Hispanic, that's a real thing, Elijah. You're looked down if you don't know that. It's a real thing.
Yes.
So my mom, because she lived here by herself, didn't have a lot of experiences with her family as she came into adulthood, and she had us young. So my mom was 21, maybe in her 20s when she had my older brother. So we got to kind of watch that happen between her and my father. But if I'm saying there's anything that we went through, I would say the hardest part would be abuse, physically, mentally, and emotionally. I did grow up in a domestic violence home. So in my house, there was a lot of yelling. That's how we dealt with issues. We didn't sit at the table, and talk about our feelings. Feelings were kind of just set off to the side. Yeah, mom never said sorry or anything like that. If my mom wanted to tell you sorry, Elijah, she'd take you to the store and buy you a taco, and you were just expected to know that everything was okay.
Okay, that's the okay. It's okay.
So that also led to my obesity as a kid.
Okay. I hear you. I hear you. You used to eat a lot of sorries, huh?
Yeah, I used to eat a lot of tacos, man. Yeah, I was eating a lot of sorries, exactly. And not even knowing it at the time. I was just thinking my mom was taking us to go get tacos. But so I dealt with abuse physically. I mean, when I say physically, like my mom beat us. There was moments where we didn't go to school the next day. And mental abuse was, I mean, every other word that came out of my mother's mouth was a curse word. It was like, you're no good for nothing, and you're no good for your mother, and that's kind of what. And it wasn't. My mom was not a bad mom. Okay, I love my mom. We have a great relationship till this day, Elijah. And my mom did with what she knew. So through her lens, she did better than what she grew up with. And learning that part of the story really affected me. You're talking about like the challenges and struggles. I dealt with unforgiveness. Like I didn't want to forgive my mom. I dealt with my identity. Another thing I dealt with, my mom didn't know English. So because my mom didn't know English, everywhere we went, I translated for my mom. So I felt embarrassed. My mom, we'd be at the bank teller line, and I have to tell the bank teller about the checking and the savings account, and I didn't know what I was saying, and so if there was like not an understanding between my mom and this individual, because of my mom's domineering character, my mom was very passionate. It could almost come off as, well, I got my mom here, she's getting frustrated with me, and then I got this teller and she's getting frustrated with me. I'm the middle person, and I'm like 6 years old trying to understand 2 adults that are trying to communicate adult language, and I have no idea what that adult language is. So that was definitely another struggle was just, it was coming and growing up in a Hispanic household. And we got eyes, like, you know, would walk into the store and my mom starts speaking Spanish and everybody's looking at you like, okay, you know, and I'm also processing through what people are thinking in their minds. Like, what are their thoughts of me? Are they thinking like, you know, there was jokes in school like, hey, do you have your green card? Do you have all that stuff were things that.
And here that is a big deal, because you kind of feel like you don't belong when people make those kind of jokes or comments.
Yep.
Then also, when you talk about, it almost kind of forces you to grow fast, because you have to look at life through the lens of an adult instead of a child.
Definitely.
Having to translate and all that stuff. And honestly speaking, I think when you talk about expression of feelings, I also don't remember my parents ever saying sorry.
And it messes with you as an adult, right? Because you're a father, I'm a pastor now. And I'm like, okay, I need to learn how to express myself in a way that's healthy and doesn't come off like belligerent or condescending.
Yes. I just feel like in certain culture, they don't encourage the expression of certain feelings, but the feeling of hunger. It's almost like when they are mad, they'll scream, but they need to love or compliment, they're quiet. I feel like as a young generation moving forward, as we are raising our children, I feel like we can work on that. I remember I watched a small video by this kid who is African American. He was saying that when you see me playing with my daughter, you think it's easy, but it's something I never received as a kid. So every day is an intentional choice to be a better father.
That's so good. I saw that video you posted, actually.
Yeah. So it got to me so much, because it's not like my father was in my life. He wasn't, right?
Yeah.
So there are certain things I have to figure out on my own about being a father, but I realize that it starts with being intentional. You're going to make an intentional choice to be involved and to create time and all that stuff. And it's not always easy. Yeah, it's not always the easy process. It's not always the easy process, because you are literally learning to give what is not in you.
Yeah. That's, you know, my pastor told me this one time, and you know what? It's so noticeable on people, and you don't even recognize it. But once you know what it is, you can see it in other individuals, and you're like, I see what's going on here. Okay. So what I'm needing to do right now in this moment is give you something that you may not have received. And my pastor would tell me this. He said, Bobby, as God gives you more responsibility, it only takes more intentionality on your behalf.
I like
you
that.
You have to be more intentional, and it can be in anything. If you have the responsibility of running a company, you have to be more intentional with the relationships that you do have. You know, whether that's birthdays, writing cards, whatever, or even with your time.
Then the other thing about me growing up, Bobby, the relationships that we used to have with our parents is like they almost explained love in form of provision. So as long as you have a roof over your head, as long as I'm paying for your school, as long as I'm giving you food, that's how you know that I love you. So there was no that connection or a bond whereby you can talk about and say, hey man, what are we gonna do here? Can we hang out and talk about things? Or dad, can I do this? No, you're just there. You know that I'm born in this family. I've got these people's last name, and they love me because they take care of me. So what I've come to realize, that it's almost like something you have to learn how to find a balance. Sometimes you just never know how people feel if they don't express how they feel. So sometimes I think it's just better to tell a kid, yo, buddy, I love you.
Yeah. And you know, that can be so hard. And I started to
Yes,
realize, and
yes.
something that you're saying is, you're right. Provision
Hmm.
was love. And even for my
Hmm.
mom, because my mom didn't grow up with much. Growing up in Mexico City, I
Hmm.
mean, you're talking about, you know, third world poverty.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
the things that she got were very scarce. So my mom even has a habit of like hoarding things, and it's out of the fear that she won't have. Like she gets afraid because she remembers when they didn't have food. She
Yeah.
remembers when, hey, I don't even know if this week we're going to have a place to stay.
Wow.
And coming into, you know, Western civilization and having a different culture, my
Hmm.
dad grew up here, so you know, my grandpa on his side, he didn't have any of that. My
That, yeah.
mom is the one that introduced me to that. And I go, again, I've seen my grandparents in Mexico. I know how they live.
Hmm.
So my understanding of what provision looks like here in this society and what it looks like in Mexico, it gave me a better understanding of my mom's story and how to be able to relate to her, because
Hmm.
I see how my family in Mexico lives. And then watching how we lived here, it's like, hey, we are
Different.
far from being poor.
Yes, yes. And that kind of changes your perspective in reality, because some people really don't have good as we have it. And the thing is, when we only focus on what we don't have, we become a little bit entitled and ungrateful.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's why I think exposure sometimes works to our advantage when we're able to travel or see how other people are doing.
It's
So
important.
let me bring you to the next question. So when I look at you, Bobby, I see somebody who's energetic, who knows how to talk to people, who is outgoing, who is confident. When did you start noticing those traits in you when you were a kid? Did you have all those, or they developed as you grew up?
Gosh, I love that question. To answer your question, was it just there? No, I think in my mind it was there, but
Hmm.
I never like acted on them. So I always had these thoughts in my head, like, you know what, right now I'm gonna get up in the middle of the cafeteria and just tell everybody, you know, this thing. But it never happened, you know. You have
Yes,
like that superhero story that you're telling yourself in your mind. You know,
yes,
everybody, I think everybody has those moments, right?
yes, yes.
Um, but growing up, I was very introverted. I didn't believe in myself. And a lot of those things came from just being bullied. I was bullied. I didn't, my pubescent years in middle school and then coming into high school, I didn't hit puberty until like my sophomore year, junior year, where, you know, you got these other kids that are like gigantics by the time they're in like 7th or 8th grade. You know, I'm
Yeah.
still short. I had the same hairstyle my entire life, and I was just picked on. So I didn't find myself until later in my senior year. But when I started to notice it, I was right about 17 or 18, Elijah. That's really when I noticed that my voice mattered. So at 17, 18, because I gave my life to God when I was 17, I don't come from like a line of pastors or anything like that. So
Mm-hmm.
at 17, 18, when I gave my life to God, that's when I would say there was a dramatic difference in, I started to love people a certain way. I saw people for who they were. I really started to see them through God's eyes. So it allowed me to just talk to them. And what I really just began to do is just share my story. This is who I used to be, and this is
Mm-hmm.
who I am. In my high school, they would have like a yearbook, and you could go through that yearbook, and they'd have like different things you could vote for. And I got voted most changed in my high school.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
So meaning when I first got to high school, I was somebody, and then by the end of my high school life, it was like, man, you're somebody that's completely different.
Wow.
And so it was like I had extrovert freshman, sophomore year. I was like in mariachi and ROTC. My
Yeah.
junior year, I'm trying out for the basketball team, trying to like, you know, go through athletics or whatever. But I
Mm-hmm.
found God, went into a Bible study. But so my voice is being found 17 and 18, but my 20s is really where I believed the call on my life.
Mm-hmm.
So 17, 18, I found that that I had a voice, that people would listen. But 20 was when I was like, you know, man, I think this is what I'm supposed to be doing for the rest of my life. So 20-year-old me was really when I started to see, yes, I have a voice, but people are also drawn to me for whatever reason. Like there was a voice, but then you'd want to like stay here. I'm like, no, go, you know, like I gave you all that I have. And at that moment, that's when slowly I started to see something different. And if I can pinpoint a moment, it was a gentleman. His name was Joe Gadai. He was my second pastor. And he sat me down at a Taco Bell, Elijah. And at this Taco Bell, he sat me down and he told me, he says, Bobby, you have leadership skills in you naturally that people for their life, they try their entire life to achieve what you have, and you do it naturally. You are meant to be a leader. God has called you to be a leader. And I didn't believe him in my 20s. I was like, oh, you're crazy. But that's really where the seed started. And I was like, okay, I just started to think about it. I think I'm called to this. I think I need to start to think about these things and read up on this. And maybe even I started to follow that pastor. Joe Gadai was the individual that moved me in that direction.
Just talking about, as you're talking about that, I'm going through a lot of thoughts, and it brought me to this. You know that there are people who live entire of their lifehood without actually tapping into their purpose.
Yep.
And what is so sad is that becomes so frustrating because you are being moved by the wind instead of moving the wind. And what I mean by that is if you don't know your own identity, you live through other people's identity. So what will happen is if you see Elijah doing this, you think it's cool, you're going to try to do what Elijah is doing. If you see Bobby doing this, you're going to try to do what Bobby is doing. If you see Brydon doing law, you're going to try to be a lawyer. And the problem why it's so hard to come into yourself and live through your own identities, we don't find a lot of people who sit you down and say, no, man, look, you've got this gift. If you can channel your life in this path, you're going to find this and this. We live in a society that will pick up on your flaws before they can pick up on your strength. So you find that we have a lot of people who live life chasing careers, goals, success, but without true sense, feeling of identity. And that's the number one cause of depression.
Come on. Yeah, hey, you're
like let me give you an example. If you, Bobby, when you're young, you're bullied and you are suffering with identity. If you grew up that and probably went to work for Fortune 500 company, still trying to figure yourself, what meaning was a career going to give to your life? Nothing. It's almost like you get in a car and you start driving without knowing the sense of direction.
Frustrating. And you waste all the gas.
Yes.
You're wearing yourself out doing that.
Yes, because whatever you're trying to achieve is not what gives you a sense of purpose. So at the end of the day, you've got people who are so frustrated, bent out in life because they haven't yet learned to understand what their purpose in life is. And because we don't have a lot of people in the society who tell you, man, you can be a writer, man, you can be a speaker, man, you can help people start businesses and help that. And I feel like that's where most of us as leaders need to work more. We need to empower people and helping them to walk into their destiny, not what we want them to do for us, what they can do for themselves, not to push them to something that fits our narrative, whatever fits their purpose, whatever they were created for. I just said the other day, I was like, you know, you cannot be everything. You cannot be everybody. The best way to waste your talent and your life is try to be everybody. You never be great if you are doing 5 things at the same time. You already be good. But if you know who you are and you channel all your effort in one calling, then you are pursuing greatness because that's what you are created for. And you know what my definition of purpose, Bobby, is?
No, give it to me.
purpose simply means solving a certain problem on earth. I feel like before God created you, he saw
So
the
good.
need. He saw the need. And he said, I'm going to create Bobby to fulfill this need. So anytime you're not living in your purpose, you are living the void on earth.
Come on. Man,
You're
that's good.
living a void on earth. You're not really doing what you are supposed to do. If you look at people who happen to achieve more, whether they're Christians or non-Christians, whether they, let's say, I can talk about Elon Musk, or I can talk about Bill Gates, I can talk about Bill Graham, I can talk about T.D. Jakes. I'll give you one example. What could have happened to our technology if Bill Gates didn't fulfill his purpose?
Mm.
Or what could have happened to your purpose if that man never spoke life into you, to whereby you started realizing your path to following Christ and identity?
Yeah,
So you realize that our lives are interconnected, but the purpose is found where there is a need.
that's right. And it's the honest truth. And you know what? I think one thing that can get our society is exactly what you're saying. Hey, we're driving after other people's purpose, and
Mhm.
we're deeming them our own. In
Mhm.
reality, and you even said it, because it's the concept. Even in business, they talk about it. It's at compound interest. Hey,
Yes,
you
yes,
are going to be so much more if you compound it into one spot, one place. You're laser focused rather than being broad focused. Like, hey,
yes,
this is what I'm doing, and as long as I keep doing this every year, there will be a return. I may
yes,
not see it right now, but
yes,
as long as you keep that up, whether that's 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, hey, there will be a return. Why? You're focused. You know exactly what you're doing and why you're doing it.
yes,
Sometimes you could be doing that specific thing that you're called to wrong, but as you learn, you move it into a different space, and you just keep building on what it is that God has called you to do, and you
yes,
keep learning from those in that sphere. Like,
yes,
your sphere can be, whatever your business does. My sphere can be the church world and what I'm doing here, right? But
yes,
knowing, as long as I know, okay, this is what I'm looking towards, I need to
yes,
get people around me that know this. Not that I'm not excited for other people and what they're doing. I get excited for them, and I can be excited for them,
yes,
but I can only be excited for them because I'm already excited for what God is doing in me. But
yes,
if I don't know what God is doing in me, then I'll get jealous of what God is doing in everybody else. So then
yes.
I'll start to look at everyone else, and I'll get insecure about what God is doing in everybody else because I don't know what God is doing through me.
That's good. That's very good. And that's what causes envy, right? Because sometimes
Yes.
you're not going to focus on what other people are doing. Why is this person succeeding? Why is that person's business succeeding? Why is this person's ministry succeeding? What about me? Why am I still stuck? Maybe you haven't looked into your own path. You are
Yep.
busy focusing on the outward instead of inward assessment of what you're supposed to do and who you really are. And I think that is what gives us a disadvantage. So, Bobby, when you found your salvation, you just didn't become a pastor. Of course, you went to college.
I went to college.
You went to college. What did you study?
I studied business administration. I studied business. My first major when I went in was nursing. So I'm
Okay.
like 2 classes away from a minor in biology. And then I swapped it to be a business major.
Wow. So, why? Oh, first of all, why did you even want to do nursing?
Gosh, when I started in nursing, if I'm being completely honest, I wanted to help people. I
Okay.
loved pediatrics at the time. I wanted to be a pediatrics nurse. That's what I wanted to do.
Mhm.
I always had these like crazy dreams and different things that happened. At that time, I wanted to own a hospital. I was like, hey, I want to open up a hospital,
I like
make it
that.
happen. I'll help out in that sphere. But then I slowly started to, again, ministry was still right there. So if I'm in college, I'm out 18, I'm coming into 19, I'm starting my freshman year in college, figuring out the courses, still talking to people. ministry I wasn't even pastoring. I was the worship guy. I was playing guitar and singing.
Oh, really?
So I didn't give like the sermons or anything yet. I hadn't given my first sermon until I was like 21, 22.
Oh,
So I'm still like, I love God, love people, just want to talk to people about who he is. And so at that point I'm like, okay, well, I need a career. I obviously, need provision in some way. I said, hey, why not nursing? I love nursing. Think nursing is a good thing. Did that, but then started to find my entrepreneurial side. Because I was working at Chick-fil-A. Crazy story. While I was in Chick-fil-A, they would tell me like, hey, you can be an operator. You can own your own Chick-fil-A one day if you want to. Finish your bachelor's, and we'll help you get into the Chick-fil-A franchise. So that's when I made the decision to switch from nursing to business administration. My operator, who was the owner of the Chick-fil-A on Southwest Military, sat me down and had that conversation with me. So I would go and open up other Chick-fil-A's in the nation. Like I would go, I opened up one in Houston, opened one here, a couple of here in San Antonio, and I'd be the trainer for those things.
Wow.
But that's kind of when I started to move into the corporate sphere. And I was like, okay, I love God, can still do God even through, whatever he's calling me to do through this facet. And I felt like I was good at it. Like I know numbers, I know vision, I knew some of those things fairly well. And that's when I switched to a business mindset, because my mentor then, who was my operator, was like, Bobby, you can do this. He hadn't had somebody that he had built up yet to start his own operator. And that's a big thing in Chick-fil-A, that if an operator can bring up another individual within the store and make them an operator, it's a really big deal. It's like passing the baton on to somebody else. So I was kind of like the protege to that store at the moment. And he was like, go get your bachelor's. I finished my bachelor's and I was on track to do that. I told him, hey, I'm done. I want to be a Chick-fil-A operator. Would you kind of like sponsor me as I go through the, it was like an interview process that you had to go through to start to own your own store. And then that's when I had to make a decision between either, hey, you can either be a Chick-fil-A operator and owner of a Chick-fil-A, or you go and be a pastor. And that's where I found myself in an intersection at some point in my life.
Yeah, that's where now I want to ask you questions. When you look at America is a materialistic country that is obsessed with success and money and all that stuff. When you look at yourself having an opportunity to be an operator and also having your own franchise, you're talking about making 6 figures to 9 figures. As you grow into that industry, and that your finances are taken care of, your family, if you start a family one time, is taken care of, you'll be set for life. But that's not what you did. You chose a different path. And I want to sit a little bit over here and talk a little bit, because talking about this is easy, but I think making a decision to do it for you, it wasn't that easy, because you are entering into uncharted territory. And honestly speaking, the easiest thing you can say is God will provide, but that's the hardest thing you can ever do. So
that's easy to say. It's another thing to live it.
Yes. So I want you to explain to us the processing of your emotions, the calm, the peace, the fears, the processing before you made that final decision that, okay, I want to go this path of ministry.
Well, can I tell you that I made the wrong decision first? Like,
I
chose Chick-fil-A. I'm going to tell you right now, like,
okay, tell me.
Elijah, the conversation that an individual had with me is like, hey, here's the deal. You can have a great life and your family be fully provided for with this, or you can go and live this call that you say you have and be worried, sick about what's going to happen next. And obviously, as a young 21-year-old, I'm thinking to myself, well, of course I want this one. I want to be sure I just got, me and Ruby were, she was my fiance at the time.
Is
And
that
I'm
in
thinking,
what, 2013 or 14? When was that?
that was in that right about that time's about 2014, 2015,
That's
around
when
that time.
where we met. That's when we met. That's right.
Yep.
All right.
So that's the conversation he's having with me. And I told my operator, I was like, hey, yeah, I want to make the Chick-fil-A decision. So I had already told him yes. I had already told him, introduce me to the corporate sphere. Let's get started on trying to do this. And time went on, Elijah, and the Spirit just kept talking to me. I mean, he would just speak to me. And it was those conversations that were like, in my soul and in my spirit, I just knew I was not going to be satisfied. I was not going to be content. It was not, like you said, I wasn't living my purpose. And wealth and having things is not purpose. I tell people this. People think, well, you need to live the fullest of your potential. You need to live the fullest of your potential. If that's the truth, then Jesus died short of his potential. Jesus had so much potential left in him then. If Jesus was supposed to live his entire potential, then he wouldn't have died on the cross. He would have kept going and did so many more things. It was him living to the fullness of his purpose.
Oh, that's
right?
good.
Martin Luther King, did he have more potential in him? Sure. But let's be honest, his death did so much for the cause all at the same time. And he needed to live to the fullness of his purpose, not to the fullness of his potential. And that's why he said, I'm not afraid to die. And he said that. I'm not. And that is when you know that you're living purpose, that you're willing to die for whatever cause it is that God has placed on the inside of your heart. And when you find that, there's nothing more gratifying than those moments, Elijah. I couldn't compare it. Like, do I ever think about the Chick-fil-A thing? And people ask me that, like, dude, but you could be a millionaire now. And I said, yeah, but money isn't what satisfies me. You're telling me that something that grows on, people say money doesn't grow on trees. It really does, because it's a tree, right? It comes from paper.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that money doesn't make people happy, but happy is such a moment. It's not joy. It's not everlasting. It's not forever. It's just a moment. And this is why you still see millionaires committing suicide and are depressed and are wondering what their life's about, because they chose a career that was based on a means and might not have been purpose. But then you have others that actually chose purpose and they're living it out. And it's like they have that lifestyle, but they're living purpose. Like they're doing something with what they have. But in my mind, when that moment came, I chose that, and God just tugged me in another way, Elijah. I knew that it wasn't the choice that God wanted for me. It wasn't the reason, you said it, it wasn't the reason he made me. He didn't make me for that. Nothing against operators. I love operators, and I think they're the greatest people on the face of the planet. I love Chick-fil-A. But it wasn't for Bobby. Bobby's purpose was not that. And I had to find my own, and my own was becoming a pastor. And he let me know, hey, that I need you to go back and talk to your operator and tell him that that's not the choice that you're going to make. So I had to go back to my operator, have a gruesome conversation. And this is a man that paid for my honeymoon. This is a man that loved me. I loved him. We had a great relationship, still have a great relationship till this time, Elijah. I mean, he sits me down. We have conversation. He so supports me. He's a mentor to me in my life. And I just had to go back and tell him and let him know, hey, this is not what God has for me. God has something different for me. If it's, at that moment I was thinking poverty, because that's all that I knew. He's like, if I'm meant to be a pastor, it's going to be fine. That's the choice that I'm making right now, and I'm like going to the cross to this thing. But can I tell you that it's not that? I truly believe it's the greatest on the face of the planet, but that's because it's in my sphere. It's the greatest call that I could have ever made. It's the thing, the most joyful. I'm satisfied. I'm content when I go to sleep. I wouldn't choose to do anything else than raise up the greatest organization on the face of the planet, and that's his church. Period.
I like that.
So I find it as a joy, but I did struggle. There were moments when I chose, and even after I chose it, Elijah, I dealt with, because I lost my first house. The first house I ever had, I lost it. And it was because I gave up a job that I was in to, go full time into ministry. And we didn't have a paycheck. There was nothing. So I had to live in a 1-bedroom with my wife and my daughter in the worship leader's house. And I'm thinking all these things in my mind. I'm thinking like, God, I don't have to do this. God, I can go do something right now and before, when I said no to Chick-fil-A, I went to go work for Ken Bassett Cadillac.
Mm.
And in that first year alone, Elijah, I was making 6 figures.
Wow. Wow.
So I had was doing things, and then in that, God told me to quit. God told me to give up my job, and I was like, I don't want to do that.
Mm.
I don't want to give up my job. I have a good lifestyle. My wife can stay at home with the kids. It's good, but it's not what he wanted. And in that first year, it was December of 23rd, I got let go.
Wow.
Of that year, I got let go. And then that's really where it started to play with my mind, where I was like, okay, are you going to stay in ministry full time? Or are you going to go get a job and do things your way and try and figure out a means to get the money that you used to make? And I chose to listen to what he was telling. And it was hard because I not only had my voice in my head, I had my wife's voice in my head. I had my daughter's voice in my head. I'm a father now. I'm a provider now, and I'm living with somebody. It's not easy for a man to go through that.
No, it's not, because you're responsible for their livelihood. So every decision that you make on a personal level not only affects you, it also affects them.
So I felt the loneliness at the top. But can I be honest with you, Elijah? At that point in time in my life, I didn't have humility. I didn't have honor. I didn't know how to honor people. I didn't know how to honor relationships. Nobody taught that to me. It wasn't, my dad didn't sit me down and say, hey, son, this is how you honor somebody that you love in your life. Hey, this is how you look at relationships. You ought to look at them through this lens, son. Though someone gives you wisdom, don't treat the relationship like it doesn't mean anything. I was so used to being familiar in relationships, and yeah, just kick your shoes off. It's cool. You already know them. But if there's anything that my pastor taught me, it's familiarity kills relationships. And that's the honest truth.
Wow.
When you start to get familiar with people, no matter how close you are, whether Elijah and I are friends, and I no longer offer you a bottle of water the minute you walk through my door, or I no longer offer you some food when you walk through my door, you've become familiar in a relationship that can ultimately mean death, where there could have been life and wisdom and joy, and still have a student mentality and a humble mentality with an individual that you would be able to learn and process from their life stories and what they have to offer. It'll just move you further away. So yeah, I dealt with that moment, and I'm not gonna lie, it was hard. It was hard, but I would not change it for the world, because God did immeasurably more than I could have ever asked or imagined as I followed the purpose that he had for my life. And I'm better today because of it.
Wow.
I'm better. I trusted him, and it was tough. But
so through that process, it's almost like you had to learn how to be humble or to appreciate more relationships. So it's almost like a molding process before you could step on to another path, another journey.
And you know, my parents were so against it. Though you asked me why I go to college, I went to college because my dad told me to.
Okay.
My dad told me, go to college. You need to go to college. I was against it. I wasn't for it. Again, just naive individual. My dad was a great logical father. And what I mean by that was, son, you go to school, you be a good dad, you provide for your family, and you do right as best you can. And you need to understand politics, and you need to know how money works. Mind you, he would tell me that, but wouldn't teach it to me, if that makes sense. Like, sit me down, have a conversation. Hey, here's how you budget out money. Here's what you say no to. Here's the difference between an asset and a liability. Here's how you do investments, things of that nature. But my mom and dad, when they found out that I was doing ministry, they were totally against it, Elijah. When I lost the first house, my dad and my mom both sat me down and said, what are you doing? You need to get your priorities straight, and you need to be the father, and you need to be a husband. And that's what God wants you to do, son. And you know, I had to have a heart-to-heart with them. And I literally had a moment with my father and my mother, and it was, look, this is what God told me to do. You're either on board with it or you're not. But if you're not, that's okay. You just need to respect the decision that I'm making. As an individual that is now married and has his own family, let me make that decision, because this is what I'm going to do. And at that moment, my dad and my mom both, they're like, I can see that this is God. And they've been on board ever since.
What was your greatest fear in the process of transitioning into full-time ministry?
Provision. I didn't know if we were going to have the money. And several times we didn't. I stopped. You're talking about me having a college degree. I stopped looking for work and focused full time on the church. And my wife went and got a job. That was hard. She worked at Citibank. And during that time, we brought on a board. And that board actually got together and started to talk about my family. So I didn't go to the board and was like, hey, we want to be on payroll or on staff. That's not how it worked. The board within the church got together and started talking about it and saying, hey, it will not be of a benefit to the church if Bobby goes back into another job. We need him here full time, teaching us the vision and mission forward. So why don't we agree to give him a stipend for his family? And that's how that process began for our family.
I think when people look at somebody who is a leader, especially like a leader of your organization and many other pastors, I honestly think most people don't understand the level of sacrifice that goes into it, because most people think people go into the ministry only to collect tithe and offering. But basically, you had to give up a lot in order for you to get into your ministry and for you to, not only you together with your wife, because I don't imagine what was going through her mind. I don't know if she ever questioned the decision, if she ever
Yes.
got. So, that is one of the hardest thing you can ever do. But looking at today, it's been how many years now?
It's actually been about 6 years. The church's anniversary went on 5, but I've been pastoring for about 6.
Look at you now. The church is growing, and you guys just moving into the new place. Then when you go back, you think about all those times. You'll be like, man, God is good, and I'm glad I never gave up. And that is the beauty of this journey in life. This is what I want to talk about. I think whether you're a Christian or a non-Christian, you should be willing to risk something in order to reach somewhere. And sometimes that is the application of faith in a Christian terminology. You don't know where you're gonna land and fall, but you're just willing to go that way. And you know what? Those are moments that stretches our lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are moments that stretches our lives. But let me also take you back to the Bible. I don't care how somebody is talented or gifted. If you don't have a message that is relatable, nobody gonna be willing to listen.
Yeah, nobody. You have to have lived it out. That's for sure.
Yeah.
You can't just have a bunch of knowledge.
Yes, and when you're pulling your heart to people, it's coming from here, because you know how it is to live with nothing, and you know how it is to live with something. You know how it is to have everything, and you know how to live with pride, and you know how to live with humility. You know what I mean? So when you're talking to somebody and say, bro or lady, I know where you are because I've been there. I'm a testimony of what God can do into your life. I think it helps people to gravitate toward you more because you have lived that life. And the fun thing about it, the journey to growth never stops. Every day you're learning new things because you're also going to be facing different challenges. So for instance, now you, Bobby, starts a ministry. A ministry becomes your second child. You've got a child.
Yeah, it really does. or seventh child for my case.
So now, not only do you have to worry about your wife and your child and the bills, now you've got a church that you need to sustain. You're gonna pay the rent. You gotta pay for bills. You're gonna find people be willing to work with you through this journey, so that you can make it successful. Because believe it or not, even if you felt it that it was a calling that God gave upon your life, part of it you're scared to fail because you don't know what you was gonna do next if you had failed. And people always will be like, "I told you."
You know, my dad asked me that one time. Like, you even said it right here. It's like, hey, did you have a plan B? No,
Yeah.
I didn't have a plan B. My dad said, hey, you should have a plan B. I said, well, if I have a plan B, then I'll give myself a way out.
Yeah.
I will find a way to get out of this.
Yes.
And I couldn't have that in that moment. I needed to know, hey, this is what I'm committed to. And something you said, I believe that God's going to send people to whatever vision God has placed in your life. I believe that 100%. There are people, and everybody has them. It's not just like this leader or whatever people see it as. The Bible talks about many parts and every part being important, and that it's even the smaller parts that are of the utmost importance. It's the parts that aren't seen, the parts that people don't see that are important. I think us as leaders and as individuals that maybe have, that people can see a platform, it's reminding ourselves, hey, people matter, and it's every single person. And God will, I don't believe this. I think that there may be people that have platforms, and I think it's from a different place. But if you have a platform, I think that that platform shows the level of aptitude that you have for people around you, the gratitude, the humility, the honor that you show people. And honor goes such a long way. And I'm literally touching the surface of this in my life right now, because there are pastors in my sphere that have taught it to me. I have pastor friends. It doesn't have to be lonely at the top. It's only lonely if you make it lonely. And there are pastors that talk to me, that advise me, that counsel me, that I still submit my life under. And I honor them for their humility and their wisdom. But I can't tell you enough, like, you have to have people in your corner that have the same mindset as you, have the same heart as you, and that you can look to and that are further ahead. I have 3 pastors in my life. One is a little ahead of me. Another one is like, okay, you're like further ahead of this person. And then this one's like far beyond the horizon. And that gives me a context to who I need to go to. Because I have like a brother that's right next to me. Then I have like an older brother that's like, okay, you have some more wisdom. But then you have like mom and dad that just know life because they've lived it. And I think all of us need those level of mentors in our life for us to be able to be and live out the fullness of our purpose and maximize the fullness of what God wants for all of our lives, so that people can speak into our dead space. People can speak into our doubt. People can speak into our fears. People can speak into our failures, because we all have those. I still have those even right. Those never go away. I don't care how big your business is. I don't care how big your church is, how big your family continues to get, or how old you are. We all will consistently still deal with doubt, fear, and failure. All of those still exist. It's how we deal with those that changes as we mature.
That's good. That's very good. I like that. So I remember we meet at Pearl Street, and you were asking a lot of
Pastor
questions.
Brent.
Yeah, Pastor Brian. We meet over there. We meet your wife. You guys were just good people with energy, with the right heart, and I could tell that you were really had passion for God and the fire, and you're also very willing to learn. And fast forward, you invited us for, I think at the hotel somewhere there. You had like a fundraising meeting. You shared about your vision for the church. Then I was living in Bani. One time we visited the church, and I'm very observant. So the moment I entered the church, everybody's smiling, and welcoming. They make you feel like at home. Then we come sit. They do the praise and worship. Then you preach. Then you go back. You greet and talk to every person who came. Then in my mind, I'm like, I love this culture. I love what they're doing over here. And here's the reason why I loved that so much. I've been to different places, different churches. Sometimes you enter a church, you feel the sense of I don't belong.
Yeah, it's true.
Nobody will talk to you, nobody will say hi. You just go there, listen, and go. But over there, when you come to Ascension Church, you feel like you're already part of the family, and you belong. And the way you guys did that, it's so amazing, because first of all, there's no church without people.
Yeah,
In order for you to bring people in, you gotta create an environment that is welcoming. When you go to Ascension Church, you don't feel like you need to come dressed a certain way or you need to be a certain way. You just have to come the way you are, then God will meet
that's
you
it.
where you are. You know what I mean? And
Totally.
yeah, so when I saw that that is the culture that is over there, I just felt so happy, because in most of these places, it's what turns people away, because you feel judged, because you feel you don't belong to this
Yep.
Christian organization. You just feel like you're in the midst of saints.
Yeah, that's it. It's the honest truth.
You know what I mean? But
Yep.
you guys created a culture that says, man, you might have done things in the past or you're still doing it, but God still loves you. You know what I mean? God will meet you where you are, and God is willing to change your life and take you into your purpose, and you mean something to the kingdom.
Yeah,
What Ascension is not just something that promotes religion, it's something that promotes relationship.
that's right.
And the best theology, in my point of view, is the relationship somebody have with God.
That's right.
And
Period.
if Jesus is love, Jesus won't judge you for your mistake. It will call you so that it can show you love, you can confess, and you can keep growing. So here's my question for you.
Give it to me.
How did you create that culture that's so powerful?
I lived it. I lived it. I lived it and I experienced it. I think those are the two things that when we were talking about that and you were like, giving me some questions that you were going to ask, that one hit me the most, because I came to know God through a culture of love. I
Hmm.
didn't come to know God because, somebody's giving me fire and brimstone and telling me all the things that I had done wrong. Though, do I believe that that's important to repent and all those other things? Yes, I believe in all that. But before you can ever get there, you first need to know that that individual loves you.
Hmm.
If I don't know that this person loves me or even wants to be anywhere near me or be close to me, there's no way I even want to know if that person exists anyways.
Hmm.
And I think that that's where we can get so caught up in religion and the law. And if you're not this way, then God doesn't love you. And if you're not this way, then you're just not holy and righteous. And, people can get there because we get so far ahead of ourselves that we forget where we started, and we forget that we had the same issues and that God forgave us for so much. There's a
Yes.
verse in scripture with the prostitute woman where she comes before Jesus. She's laying her hair out. She's like bathing him with perfume and her tears, and she's wiping it away. And Jesus makes a statement to the Pharisee, and he tells him, he says, those that have been forgiven for much, love much. Those that have been forgiven for little, love little, right?
Hmm.
So if that's the truth, the reason there is a culture of love, if I can be honest, Elijah, it's because I've messed up dramatically.
Hmm.
I've messed up horribly. I
Hmm.
wasn't good at relationships. I wasn't even good at, when I started with Jesus, I made terrible mistakes in my walk with God. And I'm so grateful for God's mercy, compassion, and forgiveness and the love that he's shown me,
Hmm.
that I can't bring myself to be the individual that says, well, Elijah, if you're doing that, you know that God is he's gonna do these things, and he's waiting to smite you, and he's waiting for you to mess it. I don't believe that. I believe because of that he gives such a grace and that I remember where I was, that I can look at somebody and, like you said, I can relate. Hey, I've been there. I've been where you've been. I feel what you feel. I'm ashamed. I feel guilty. I feel broken. I feel like I can't get out of this addiction. I feel like there's a cycle that's around my life consistently. The last thing that those individuals need, because I was that individual, the last thing I wanted to hear was, hey, if you haven't noticed, you're doing that. I already know that I'm doing that. I just don't know that there's an out. I don't know that there's a hope. I don't know that. And the Bible says in 1 Corinthians 13, this is the thing that radically changed my life, Elijah. Love covers a multitude of sins. So all I keep asking myself, every time I'm in a relationship with people, I ask myself one question. Bobby, does your love with people, when they leave those conversations, do they feel like their sins have been covered?
Love.
That's what I think. Love. So even my salvation story, it was those individuals that I met at an IHOP that radically loved me, that led me to ask myself a question. The question that I asked myself is, how can these people love the way they do when I don't even receive that kind of love at home? And I left with, man, me and God had a conversation, and that's how I gave my life. My life was given to God because of the radical love that people showed me. And I believe through that radical love, people can come to know who God is. And that's why the culture of Ascension is what it is. It's not because it's like some awesome gimmick or a really great process or a system. No, it's just the system that I came and encountered. It's the experience that I had with God. And I want everybody else to experience him in a similar manner. I'm not saying that it's the only way. I'm just saying that for us at Ascension City Church is the way that we deem to say, hey, you can meet God and this is how you'll meet him.
I love that so much. I really love it. But this is the other thing I love about you guys, you and your wife and your leadership. So often people get into ministry with agenda of self-promotion and self-elevation. So what happens is the more the church starts growing, the more you start noticing the change. They want more influence. They want more power. They want more honor. They want more special treatment. But you guys keep on being humble and staying in humility. What keeps you grounded?
Gosh, that's a good question. I think what keeps me grounded is definitely, and I know this is so like churchy, but it's a spirit. It's reminding myself consistently, and it not just a spirit, but really keeping your eyes focused on God, but specifically praying for people, that people would develop, that people would love him. And I think when you can see people the way that God sees people, you slowly start to come out of yourself. Like you really believe, okay, I believe what God is really saying, that I'm here to serve, not to be served. I really believe, hey, God, you're the one that's doing this at the forefront. Elijah, there was a time where I'd get up to preach and I'd come home and I'd be depressed. And because I was asking myself, did I do a good job? Did I not do a good job? I was lost in my identity and I wasn't grounded in God. And because I wasn't grounded in God, then anybody would move me. So you're asking me, what's my grounding? My grounding is knowing that I've been forgiven. It's knowing that God is the one that has called me and he's the one that consistently moves through me. If I can remember those things, I'm going to consistently be grounded. So every time I get off stage now, I always tell myself, God, you did a great job. Holy Spirit, you did what you wanted to do. I take the pressures off myself. And that's in any meeting, any conversation. I just remember, hey, I'm partnering with you anyways. You're going to give the favor. You're going to give the influence. You're going to give the message. I'm not the reason that people stay, and I'm not the reason that people go. And when I can have an open front door and also an open back door, then I release myself of any pressure in thinking, well, I have to do, and I need to be, and I should have done. It just alleviates it because I'm relying and trusting on God. I'm not saying that we don't partner with him, because we do, Elijah. But I'm also saying, hey, at the end of the day, your Father who is God did not put that kind of pressure on you. He says, cast your burdens on me, for my yoke is light. And that's what I do. My grounding is casting my burdens on his yoke.
I like that a lot. I like that a lot. I love that. So what is happening in Ascension Church right now?
Oh gosh, so much is happening, right? Life change is happening. First of all,
Mhm.
we recently got into a new building. So for the last 5 years, we were a load in and load out church, meaning we would come at like 7 in the morning, set everything up, wouldn't leave till about 2 p.m. We met in a middle school. We met in a recreation center. We met in a house. We met at a Bill Miller's at one point, in restaurants. And now God's given us the opportunity to space. So we're in a rent to own agreement for 2 acres of land with a building that's
Nice.
about 2,800 square feet. We just got donated by Westover Hills 4 portables 60 feet by 30 feet. So we're just having to move those completely free. Didn't charge it anything. They have AC units in them. 2 of
Wow.
them have bathrooms and a kitchen in it, which has been phenomenal to watch God work. So yeah, we just got done with the 24-hour shoot-a-thon this last weekend on Friday
Yeah,
and
tell me
Saturday.
about it. Yeah.
So Friday at 5 p.m. till Saturday at 5 p.m. the next day, I shot a basketball. I made 4,000 shots, took about 10,000 shots. So there's my scoring percentage.
Right there.
And, LeBron would be proud, man. I know you're a LeBron fan. Okay? So just gonna throw his name out there just for you. That was just for you, Elijah. Okay.
Yeah,
I don't know if I'm like a
You
huge
know
love.
it.
There's one thing to like a guy. I don't know if I'm like super in love with him, all right? But you gotta respect talent and gifting, okay?
Yeah,
You
that's
just
how
gotta respect it.
That's what
It's
I'm
funny
talking
because
about.
you can have haters in your life, right? But
Mhm.
when they're around you, they have to respect the talent and
Just
ability. It's just the
respect.
honest truth.
Yes.
You know
I
what I'm
like
saying?
that.
It's like people could have hated Kobe their entire life, but you have to respect what the
Is
guy did.
I
Like
did.
he
Yes.
did some awesome things.
Yeah.
Period. You
Yeah.
can't just you can't negate the facts.
No, you can't. You
You
can't.
can't. You can't negate the facts. It's just the
Mm-hmm.
truth. It's like Kawhi Leonard. And San Antonio's all mad, right? But at the end of the day, the dude went and won a championship ring the next year. Okay,
Yeah.
like
It's like, what you want? Oh, okay.
yeah.
We're gonna hate, but we respect him.
Hey, you gotta respect. You gotta respect it. So that's what we got going on right now. We shot some shots. We raised. We were trying to hit $50,000.
Mhm.
That $50,000 was also in partnership with Southwest ISD. Southwest ISD has an outreach program that helps underprivileged children and the people needing shelter during the COVID time. The rates had gone
Wow.
up, and they had reached out to us to partner with them to give the kids Christmas toys. So
Wow.
10% of that proceeds went towards Southwest ISD. So we raised $17,561 that day. So we're going to write them a 10% check, which is about $1,756. It's still
awesome.
going on. We're going to keep it going through December. So the
Yeah,
link's
that's
still
good.
out there, but that's what we've been doing. We're trying to get in. We're hoping maybe sometime at the end of November. There were some things that kind of slowed down. We're in the electrical work right now. The AC just got done. They built the stage out already. So we just need to finish some of the plumbing and then finish furnishing out the inside and putting the portables on the actual property.
Where are you guys located at?
We're located off of 90 and 211. That's right after you have 1604. The next actual bridge is 211. So it's between Medina County and Bexar County. There's a Whispering Falls subdivision right next to it. I mean, our building is the only one on the left-hand side. You should be able to see it. It's a white and black building. It says Ascension City Church off of it.
Definitely will be coming to check it out as soon as
Come
possible.
on.
So I've got a very important last question for you. Actually, I've got two more. So you have achieved. You have
Grab something.
okay.
Go. Got it.
So you have achieved a level of success. What I mean is your church is growing. You're doing good. Your family is doing good. You are doing good. Yeah, I consider you to be successful. I want you to give me the definition of success and how you measure success.
Gosh. Okay. So my definition of success would be this. It's seeing people become a better version of themselves. Now, if I'm going to give you like the Christianese version, right? As a pastor, this version, the best version of somebody is the God version of themselves. what God sees the best in them. So I believe that for me, that I deem that to be successful. Now, how does that relate to me? I think in my life, when I gave my life to God and I was like, hey, this is what I desire to do. When I see families, children, husbands, wives, like be completely different from the moment they walk through the doors, and I then see they take off and they go and do whatever God has called them to do, but I see true life transformation happen in their lives, and we got to develop them, and I see them be a really awesome pastor or worship leader or a businessman or whatever sphere they're in, right? Because you can still be a believer and have a different provision that God has given you to enact his call and talk to people. Your platform may look different, whatever the platform is, whether that's at the 54th Street Grill or the McDonald's down the street or being an entrepreneur. That what we do doesn't deem who we are, right? Like, I get it. People call me Pastor Bobby, but pastor is not my identity, okay? I'm a son first before I'm ever anything else. Just like Elijah is a son of God first before he's ever anything close to whatever, any other title that you want to give him. And the reason that I say that, my definition of success is really that is, did people get better when they interacted with me in this relationship? Did my relationship make them better? I deem that as success. So in mine and Elijah's interactions, did I help Elijah get better at anything? Was there something that he took from my life that he then developed and continued forward? Regardless if he gave me credit for it, regardless if he honored me for it, I just want my life to be a place where people can take and enhance themselves and continue to move forward to be all that God has called them to be. For me, there's no feeling, Elijah, like watching somebody come through the doors of Ascension City Church and saying, this place has completely changed my life. My marriage is better because of it. My kids are better because of it. That right there, people think that wealth comes from money. I don't deem my wealth that way. I believe that even kingdom wealth has always been his people. Kingdom wealth is his people. If that wasn't the wealth that God desires, he wouldn't have sent his son to die. Jesus died because God's wealth is founded inside his people. And I believe that my wealth is founded in relationships.
That's good. That's good.
So my definition of success would be, hey, did people develop through our relationship? And then how am I seeing, like, my successes would be through the people that talk about it, the people that say, hey, he made a difference in my life. He helped me become what God wanted me to become. He moved me to be ... And I was just a voice, just like somebody was a voice for me at a Taco Bell to tell me that I'm a leader. I want to be able to bring out the gold in people.
So one thing I'm realizing from having the conversation is, again, every step you take, regardless of what is given or what's into you, you have to take an intentional step. So just because you're a Christian, you don't automatically expect it to love people or cultivate meaningful relationship. You have to make an intentional choice to do every time, right?
Yes, come on, that's so right. Totally right. And I would even say that it's not just going to happen overnight. It's like you said before. People have told me, like, hey, do I just automatically change when I become a believer? No. You continue to seek him, move him. And the big thing is be around people that you see are living that life out, because it's going to help you make those decisions. It's like if somebody's addicted to a specific thing, if they're around those individuals that are addicted to the very same thing that they're addicted to, they're more likely to make that addictive choice. If they're not around those individuals and they surround themselves with people that have been through sobriety and have freedom, and they're talking about their freedom and how long, and they're listening to the testimonies and the witness of what has happened in their life, they're more likely to live that sobriety out and live out that witness. Why? Because of their context and where they are.
Okay. Just because I said that, something popped in my head.
Give it to me.
If Jesus was living in our generation right now,
Whew. God have mercy.
what
We're going there.
what would be his message?
If Jesus was living in this generation today,
Mm-hmm.
what would be his message?
Mm.
I think we're living in an age, they call it the age of information, right?
Mm.
I think that now we're living in an age of misinformation.
Mm.
Meaning, yes, it's so easy to get information, but it's also very easy to be misinformed.
Mm.
If Jesus was here, I think not necessarily that his message would change.
Mm.
I think there are just so many people right now that are lost in their identity, and they find themselves comparing themselves way too often. So I think his message would be a message of hope, faith, love, all the way, right? But specifically, if he's trying to turn a certain way, he's reminding them that they don't need to compare themselves to anybody, that he made them just the way they are, and he loves them the way that they were made, in their background, in their ethnicity, in the economic status that they're in right now, that they would create a change where they are. And if they focus on their roots, they can create the change that he made for them to make, not what everybody else has made for them to make. So I would say that. I would say not living a life of comparison. And I'm saying that because of social media.
Yes.
Social media,
Bring
Facebook,
it. Bring it.
Instagram, Twitter,
Bring it.
Snapchat, TikTok, YouTube, Vimeo, any other platform that claims social. You're not being social.
Mm.
Social media is not even as social as people think it is. It's a
Mm.
marketing platform. That's what social media is.
Preach.
If it's a marketing platform, what's the point of a marketing platform? For you to buy something. It's a product platform, okay? It's not for you to be social. Social is pick up the phone, give me a call, let's talk and actually have a conversation.
Mm.
And we're in a space, it's a weird, because I'm talking to some of the generation that's coming up next, and it's hard for them to have a conversation. It's awkward. And it's like every moment you have a conversation, it's almost like they're offended by something.
Yeah.
They're offended, or you didn't speak to me right, or you didn't do a specific thing, and they need a ton of encouragement. The generation coming up right now has to be one of the generations that need the most affirmation. I would not beg to differ that the generation coming up, their love language, a lot of them will be words of affirmation. But the reason that it's that is because they're having to live up to a platform that they believe people have given them that's a false platform. And that's that they need to have 1 million likes, 1 million views. And if they don't have that kind of a platform, then they're nobody, they have no influence, and nobody cares about them.
That's so deep, bro. And that goes to every culture, every country.
Everywhere.
And it's just almost sad in a certain sense, because I feel like it distorts so much the process of self-discovery and building a health identity. So you find yourself looking for likes and affirmation. If it's some ladies is exposing their body to get more likes. If it's guys is making success.
Can I say something real quick to that, Elijah? My pastor told me this. He told me, he said, Bobby, before God ever gets you a platform, before you ever go searching for anything, the first thing that you need to already choose inside your heart the things that you're not willing to do to get there. You have to choose before you embark on this journey, even the one that you and I were talking about compounding and starting to move and put all our efforts into one place. You have to choose the things that you're not willing to do to get there. Meaning, I'm not going to take a bribe to get there. And like you said, I'm not going to show off my body to get there. I'm not going to prostitute myself to get there. Nothing against those that are. The reason that people get there is they get so far lost in what people have said about them, or unforgiveness, or, well, this is just what's expected of me. It almost becomes their normality in life. Wow. And I want to let people know, and even here, it's like, you don't have to live that lifestyle Nobody puts you to that standard. God does not have that standard for you. Man can have that standard. Social media can have that standard, but it doesn't mean just turn it off. Delete the app. Stop for a second. And I can tell you this, I've found myself, I'm the first person to tell you, it's easy to compare yourself on social media. I've done it. I've gone on and I'm like, oh, well, look at so-and-so. And why does so-and-so have that? And man, they don't even do it that good. Like, I thought I did it better.
Yep.
You get there. And listen, if you just turn it, I found myself to have the most peace when I turn it off. And I just take a second to, whether I'm outside, I breathe, I take a walk, I read. I love reading. It's a habit I like to do. I listen to something on Kindle. I'm focused on something other than what other people are doing. And social media is engraved with showing you what other people are doing.
But
that's all it is.
That. This is the other thing that is sad. The more you're on social media, the more you're likely to make money for the tech companies because it's an advertising platform. So what happens is this. If I've got Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, the first thing when I wake up, I'm going to go through one, then I'll go through another one. So by the period of 8 hours when I'm supposed to be productive, but I've spent 4 hours. And guess what? I do this every day. So which means if you multiply 4 hours by 7, you're talking about almost 28 hours weekly that you go there comparing
one whole day
to others and playing just to get the information that is even not correct. So what does that do to your personal productivity and personal growth?
I think productivity, first of all, it goes down the water. Not only is it that it takes away your productivity, but your life is built around habits. We are creatures of habit, period.
Yes.
And if we cannot identify what moves and what ticks us, I think that's where people can start. If people are asking themselves right now, hey, how do I know if I have that tendency? Just write down what you do today and tomorrow. Every moment, write down what you do. And you will easily find your habits. When do you open the phone? What time do you open the phone? When do you put the phone down? When do you charge the phone? Are you the kind of person that's like, where's my phone right now? And so-and-so called me. And you're so moved by other people's schedules that you yourself don't have one personally for you. And I can tell you this, the individuals that they are watching don't do the same habits that they do. They actually have a schedule and they have a written down time that they're going to create the video. They're going to do content. They're content creators. And they're not sitting there wasting their time looking at everybody else. They're sitting there putting their time into their brand and their person and what they're doing. And I'm not saying like, hey, what I am saying right now is your life does not revolve around other people. It's important for people to know that, yes, you need community and yes, you need people that love you, but find community that have they're in the similar direction that you're headed in. You're going to need that. And I'm not saying that you can't broaden your sphere and open it up to other people, but I'm saying start there because you're headed in that same direction and then begin to open it up elsewhere. Like when I really got pastors in my life, it was important because they were going to know the difficulties that I had and they could relate to me in a different way. Now, I've also broadened those relationships. Like I told you about the operator I have, your relationship rewards a relationship. Like I have other people in other spheres that can talk to me and we have conversation because we're still doing similar things in some of our contexts. They're not exactly the same, but we can still relate in different ways. Yeah. So I'm saying stop and take a moment to actually make a friendship and make a relationship with people that are not on a electronic platform and actually talk to somebody that's in front of you, because somebody that's in front of you can give you a hug. Somebody that's in front of you can actually, hey, I love you so much. And there's a difference between somebody looking you in the eyes and having that conversation and letting you know, I believe in you, instead of you cannot compare, Elijah, the fact that somebody liked your comment to I came over to your house and gave you a hug. Which one has more of an emotional effect on you? The like button or the bring it in? Come here.
Bring it in. Bring it in.
The bring it in is going to change it dramatically. It's going to knock it out of the water for you.
Wow, that's good. So That's really good. Actually, that brought me to another question. I could have stopped this conversation, but I just wanted to go
Keep
deep.
going. It's all good. I love talking about this stuff.
So um, I have a lot of friends who are pastors, and me, I'm a observer because I'm just intrigued by people. I'm intrigued about character, purpose, influence, leadership. So you are in a position of leadership. You've got people who look at you, they look up to you for advice, for guidance in every spectrum of life, either it's finances, marriage, relationships. How
Right.
are you able to handle all these things at once while you're still building and growing and working on yourself?
That's a great question, Elijah. I will tell you this. I've learned in my life that I need to set barriers,
Hmm.
and barriers are important. Meaning I can't help everybody. And
Ooh.
I've had to learn that. I have to learn that I cannot help everybody. And that's where I was telling you before, like giving the weight off and putting that yoke on the Lord is so much easier for me because they're his people. They're not my people.
Hmm.
When I can get out of the, well, this is my church and the my mentality and really be able to say, hey, this is his church. This is his people. Somebody's going to take over after me. I hope somebody takes over after me. I don't want to stay in this seat forever. I do want somebody to come up over me. I want to be able to teach them everything that I know and give them any kind of wisdom in front of me. But I think one of the ways that I make sure that, number one, I'm constantly learning. I plan out my year.
Hmm.
Like I said, the more responsibility you have, the more intentional you need to become. I've only learned that with the more that God gives me, I have to be more intentional. And here's the key: you have to be more intentional with your time. With your time, meaning at one point I could just plan out the 2 days. I could just plan out the week. Now I know what my year's gonna. We already have it. We're gonna have a staff meeting for next year already, and
Wow.
all the dates are tentative. We have all the dates ready to go. I know when I'm taking vacation next year. I know what that looks like. I know when it's going to happen. I even have it so far down. I started asking myself this question because I told you I'm recently learning honor. I'm asking myself the question: this year, what relationships help me become healthy?
Hmm.
Which ones did I like to have, and then which ones did I walk into like, I don't like the way I'm walking out of this conversation. It's
Hmm.
just not healthy. And this is different from like the relationships that I have that are like ones that help me and correct me. I mean, those are great. And you're going to walk out of there like, man, okay, I need to fix some things. I'm never walking away from those. But I'm talking about the ones that are just, this was really just a waste of my time. Nothing happened from it. You obviously weren't listening to me. I obviously have no influence, no favor here whatsoever. I know it, you know it. It's I probably help you feel good in a moment, but I really didn't help you get anywhere. You're gonna stay here. You're gonna be in the same place 3 months later. Those are relationships that I start to look at. And I'm not talking about like people. I love people, period. I'm talking about like mentors and leaders and my friendships, those that are helping build me as an individual. I start to look at those, and I'll place the ones that are like top 5. I tell you right now, I have anniversaries, birthdays, all those things are like in my list. And there are some that I think about that I'm like, man, I really haven't been a good friend on that one. And then I start to reevaluate, and I'm even going down to like, hey, I want to apologize to some people. Like, hey, I didn't realize the value of this relationship, and I just want to apologize. And I think that goes a really long way, regardless of who you are. It shows a lot about who you are and your character. But those are ways for me that I keep myself grounded in being able to consistently move forward. And here's the other kicker. Always have a rest day. Always have a Sabbath. I was somebody that would go ahead of God all the time, Elijah. And I would not take a Sabbath. But now I have it ingrained in my schedule. Fridays for me, I don't touch anything to do with ministry. I'm still a Christian, still love people, still talk to people about God.
That's
But
smart.
I don't touch anything ministry. I don't do any. And what I believe on that day, and this is my belief system, and I can show it to you through scripture, but again, just my belief, is that I'm telling God in that moment, God, I trust you, And I don't rely on my skill, my talent, and my ability to move this forward.
I like that.
You are in control.
That's good. That's really so good. So, as as a husband, as a father, as a visionary, as a speaker, as a pastor, when you live your life full of your purpose, what legacy do you want to be remembered for?
That's a good question. A really good book to read, if anybody wants to read a book. It's called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Yes. And he gives this very similar thing. He says, start with the end in mind. Live your life in such a way that you know what the ending is going to be like and work your way towards the end. And it kind of reminds me of that, because you're asking me, hey, how do you want people to talk about? What's the legacy that you're leaving behind? I think about this plenty of moments in my mind. And here's what I've come down with. Here's what I've found in my, at the end of my life, I hope to leave a legacy that built people to be all that God had called them to be through 2 things, through loving people and gracing people. If my daughter comes to me at the end of my life and I get to hear out of her mouth, my daddy built me to be all that God has called me to be. He loved me and he graced me through the process. Yo, I'm a happy man.
That's it.
I'm satisfied. I'm content in every way.
That's deep. I love
That's
that.
it. It's as simple as that. Nothing to do with how far we got, anything. Just that my kids would come to me and say, my dad, he told me about God and he built me in that and he loved me through it and he graced me. And the grace part is so big that I want to be the father, pastor, leader, because I've seen a lot of different style of churches. I've seen a lot of different pastors. I've watched pastors' kids. And my biggest desire, Elijah, is that as my kids continue to grow, that I won't be the father that moves their dreams and tries to live my goals in my kids, but rather just allows them to know whatever you want to do, include the Lord in it, love him, and he'll grace you for anything you want to do. And I want to be able to have influence. I want them to be able to come and talk to me, regardless of whatever situation they're in, even if it's the worst thing in the world. Then I would tell them, I tell my kids this before they go to bed. I tell them, Daddy loves you no matter what, with all of his heart, forever and always. Meaning no matter what happens, does Daddy love you? Yes. Elijah, the cops could be at my door. Okay. But I want my dad loves me no matter what. With all of his heart, forever and always.
Dude, that's so deep. Well, when you're talking about that, I was just thinking about my little Max.
Hey, and you know, it's Elijah, it's crazy that you say this. We are both fathering from a place. Nobody taught us this. My dad didn't teach me to be a spiritual father. My dad's learning. He's growing his relationship. I love my father. It's not how he fathered me, though. So I'm laying the footsteps. It's almost like you and I are mavericks right now, where we are pioneering this new way for the next generation. And Max is going to know that. My son's going to know that. And what I do now will affect the generations to come. And I believe, and I'm believing that legacy that they're going to continue from our deposits, from our sowing, is going to be one of love and grace and of God. That they would not depart from the path, but that they would know his path is the only path. And it has favor, and it has influence, and it has love, and it has joy, and there's life and abundance in this path.
That's so good. That's so good. Yo, Bobby, I'm so inspired. It was a great show. We touched about a lot of things.
We did.
We had Caleb Lozano. We had Carlos De Luna.
Caleb, come on, Carlos. What up, crew?
We've got Sidin. We've got Kalua. They were following the conversation. I'm inspired. Challenged. I learned through a lot through this conversation, and that's the reason why I've got this podcast, because there's just a lot we can learn from one another, and we can keep on growing and being better as a people. And For me, my heart is to see people do well, grow in their purpose, and keep on doing what they're doing. And I appreciate you for putting me in your schedule, even if your calendar was, oh yeah.
Oh man, thank you for having me, Eliza. You know I'd stop doing anything for you, man. You guys rock. I love you and Erica so much, and your family, man. Y'all are awesome.
Thank you so much, bro. Do you have any last word for the audience before we
Gosh,
go?
if I'm saying anything, hey, continue down your journey. Don't quit. You're doing better than you think. Keep doing what God has called you to do. Don't give up, even when it gets weary. Trust me, God's there on the other side of it. He's actually just waiting for you to trust him in that moment to know that he can push. He's the one that pushes you through. So keep going, even if it's a threshold right now. You're doing great.
All right. For you guys who missed the conversation, it's gonna be uploaded on YouTube. So if you want to catch me with Bobby, you'll be able to see that probably by tonight. But thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. And Bobby, I appreciate you so much, bro.
Elijah, we'll catch you later, man. Love to do it again.
All right, brother. Thank you so much.
We'll see y'all.
All right. Bye.